You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Welcome back to Where You Live. It's great to have you with us. We are broadcasting from the Natural Green Lawn and Landscape Studios. We're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. We have a lot of folks that look forward to a resource that we provide free. A new newsletter has come out this December that you don't want to miss. If you are not getting that newsletter, all you need to do is give us a call. Let me give you that number, 952-922-2500. Ask for Lori, and she'll make sure that you start receiving that either electronically or by mail. We have over 23,000 subscribers, and it is chock full of upcoming and new webinars in December and January coming up that we teach at New Concepts in the evening. You can watch from the comfort of your jammies in your own home in front of your computer.
And they're free.
As well as the newsletter. So make sure you start receiving that. Well, let's deal with this next story, Tony. And this comes from the Palm Beach Post. And it's entitled, Fake Service Dogs Provoke Resentment and Possible Rule Changes. Now, the person in this story wanted to kind of give a sense that people who have service animals aren't always easily to detect.
Yeah,
you
can't always tell by looking at someone.
If someone's blind, yes, you can tell if someone has a service animal that's guiding them along. But here's a case in point. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking of, the guy that zooms into the handicap parking slot and jumps out of his car, and I look for this. I don't see any. I don't see any handicap tag on his mirror.
And you're ready just to tell this guy what for?
Well, he has no handicap indication on his car, which he has to have legally. And so I always assume it's a mental handicap in that case.
Well, I remember being indignant and actually letting into a guy one time
for parking. Yeah,
parking, and he had the tag. So
he did have the tag.
He could do that.
All right.
And but he was younger than me, and he was running into the mall. And I said, "Hey, what?" And he said, "I'm picking up my 85-year-old grandmother.
Well,
this is her car."
There you go.
Okay.
So that's a different situation.
Again,
right.
I guess things aren't always as they appear.
That's right. So you shouldn't jump to conclusions about these things.
Yes.
All right.
And that's, I think, the point that this guy mentions in this story. He gives the example of Macy and Milo, two blonde labs. He said if you were to look at their wagging tails and the way they goof off like any other pooch at the dog park. But their owner, the 20-year-old college student, Shoshana Rappaport, is looking at the dogs, and they said you wouldn't know that anything's wrong except when she turns her head to the right and her neon orange hearing aid is visible. And it's obvious that she is also not like the other dog owners in the park. She needs these dogs to help hear for her.
These are service dogs.
These are
and
truly
his
service
point
dogs.
is that's not necessarily apparent at first glance.
And so unlike the story I first gave, where I thought I had this righteous indignation that I could go after someone. There's always another side of the story. And so that person brings that up. But then they also say, this whole issue with people claiming to have service animals is getting pulled way out of proportion.
It's being abused.
Because
in most public places, you cannot question someone about their service animal. If they state, my dog is a service animal, you can't question them. You can't ask them for proof of a disability or a proof that the dog is a service animal so that they can bring that animal into a restaurant, into a store, into any kind of public space, into a taxi cab, right? So it's according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, you cannot question that. There's a couple exceptions to that.
Yeah, and so I guess it kind of begs the question, should vendors, or I guess in this case people in hotels, restaurants, places of business, people who own rental apartments, should they have the right to be able to check and ask for some
housing
verification?
Housing is separate from this. Housing is set aside in the ADA. Air travel and housing, we are able to ask for verification that someone has a disability. We can't ask what the disability is. We can't ask for that, but we need verification because allowing a service animal in a housing situation may be violating the other residents' fair housing rights. In other words, if I have a building where no pets are allowed, and I've told everyone who lives there that no pets are allowed, but someone comes along with a service animal, I have to be able to justify allowing that service animal.
But to me, it seems like a double standard, don't you think?
Not necessarily in that case. No, I don't.
I guess I would think it is. If someone, in case of a restaurant, and someone's coming in, there are health codes that could affect other people, but they're not supposed. They're not an apartment building. They're not a landlord. So
right. So they have to accept this stuff.
So they have to accept
even
it
though they're violating some other law. By accepting the dog.
Exactly, because on any other situation, you've got a case where if I just brought my dog into a restaurant, people would say, no, there's health codes here.
That's right.
Buddy, you got to get your dog out of here. But nothing has changed with this service animal in terms of their cleanliness and right?
Well,
their
they may
dandruff or other.
They may be better cared for than some animals.
That's an assumption. That's an assumption.
Your pet, is it Mindy?
Mindy
is very well cared for.
Well, she should be allowed
and
anywhere.
She should be allowed anywhere. That's right.
But
that's right.
But the bigger point here that I'm trying to make is, I think there is a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah, good point.
Because all you need is for someone else complains and says, hey, you've allowed this animal in the restaurant. I've got allergies, and now I've got this.
I have to leave.
But then now you've got we've got competing laws, competing regulatory agencies that are all vying. One saying, I think we have this supersedes that, and someone else says no. I think the health code should supersede all. And the other person says no. I think the others that the ADA should, because otherwise it's discrimination.
Yeah,
and we live in a PC world.
Yeah,
politically correct world.
True.
And the worst thing you can do is, oh my gosh, offend someone. You know, the idea that that you're asking me to prove that I've got a disability.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why we can't ask for that. Do we ask people to prove that they can drive?
Sure.
With a driver's license?
That's right.
That's right. Why is it no problem to have to produce something to say I have a right to be in a car and to drive?
Yep.
Because I've got the driver's license. Why shouldn't someone also be required to have a card to say here is proof of the disability? But this idea that we can't even ask,
that's a really good point, because you don't have to know what the disability is. You don't, I mean, the vendor or the restaurateur doesn't need to find out what that person's disability is. But let's say the animal has to be licensed.
Yeah.
As a service animal. I don't see any problem with that at all. And I happen to have the license that says I need a service animal, and this is my service animal. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. But here we've got this case. Because of that, you've got a lot of people who are using this social climate that we're in of this PC, political correctness.
Right.
And they're saying, you know what? I can use this to my advantage because I can feign I can feign being indignant and offended. Now, didn't you have someone in a rental property?
Yeah, I went 9 rounds with Can Do Canines, which provides service animals.
No, I'm talking about the one guy.
Oh, that's a different story.
No, that one.
That's a different story. Okay, I was managing a large apartment community, and my new assistant manager moved on site. into one of the apartments. That was part of her job, which was to live on site. She hadn't been there very long when she came into the office and said, Tony, do you know that the guy that lives next door to me has a little dog? No dogs were allowed in this apartment community of 365 apartments. I said, no, I didn't know that. What's going on? She goes, I hear the dog barking all the time. It barks day and night. And the owner yells at it and uses profanity. Shut the blink up. Yeah. Stop that noise. And so there's this constant racket going on. So I wrote a letter to the resident. I said, please be aware, as you are aware, your lease states you cannot have dogs on the property. You must remove the dog.
Yes.
He came.
Go ahead. We got time
He
here.
came storming into the office, came up to me and said, I'll have you know that I do not have a dog. That's me making that sound, barking and yelling and using profanity because I have Tourette's and you have violated my rights and you have violated the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I set him down.
And the bottom line was, did he have Tourette's?
I don't know. I asked him to provide verification of that because I'm allowed to do that as a landlord, and I never heard from him again.
Well, hey, so much more. Are you offended about what's going on here with people and fake service animals? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit further, but we got to take this break. Don't go away. More Where You Live after these messages.